Hi, everybody. Welcome back to PTS Dan. How we
Hey,
doing
John.
today?
Good, good, good.
Good. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about nostalgia in sales, and I want to relate it to a personal experience that I think will help a little bit. But so when I was 16, 17 years old, the original Top Gun movie came out. And obviously the second one, Maverick, came out last year at some point. And I really enjoyed watching the new one, and it reverted me back to being in high school. It immediately took me back. And for me, it was nice that my kids sat around and watched it. They enjoyed the movie too, but I don't think any of them had seen the original one from years ago. But it got me thinking about how nostalgia plays a role in sales, on how people view certain things and think backwards a lot about how things used to be, or the way they were, or what they would like them to be. And if you can sort of tap into that in a sales conversation, it can really draw somebody in closer to you because they feel like you understand them and you understand the nostalgia. And so you can meet with two groups, and one is very nostalgic about the fact that their father started the business and they're now running it, and it means the world to them and their family. And that is everything. You walk in, and the story of the father's on the wall, and that's how your experience begins. And there are others that don't give a darn about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And figuring that out and pulling that into the sales conversation, I think really can help you in a lot of ways. But can you talk about that nostalgia element, and sometimes how prospects will kind of latch on to something that matters to them, and if you recognize it, the role it can play?
John, this is purely a listening skill, because if I'm listening to a prospect in the example you gave, a son or a daughter whose parents started the company or whatever, and they're speaking very highly of their mom and their dad.
Yes.
That's an interesting topic. I'll latch on to that, not to be manipulative or anything, but because I'm genuinely interested
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah.
And what did they see that their dad or mom did and they liked, and how do they want to keep doing that? But there are other times where the child does not want to talk about their parents. They thought
Yes.
that the way their parents ran the company was not very good. And I also want to latch onto that as well and say, well, what do you think your dad or mom should have done differently?
Yes.
Why do you think they didn't? How do you see yourself doing it differently? So I guess what I'm getting at here is nostalgia is both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
And you don't know which it is until you start to really and genuinely intently listen to what the person is telling you and how they're saying things. And then from there, decide which way you want to go, which, by the way, is what I love about sales. You cannot predict the way any
Nope.
meeting goes.
Nope.
It's always so different.
I
And
don't
if
care
you
how you prep. I don't care what research you do. It will go a different direction than you anticipate every stinking time.
Right. And if you are walking in there thinking this is exactly the way it's going, you are going to not do well.
You're done.
You have to go in with preconceived ideas, of course, but boy, you have got to intently listen and pivot from there.
Yeah. Well, and I think if you start a conversation with me, if you want to talk about my kids, my wife, or my parents, I'll light up and I'll discuss it for as long as you'll tolerate it. But you can see in my demeanor and my tone and all those things how I feel about those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And it can help you a lot. It can hurt you a lot if you go the wrong direction with it relative to me. But I think we can also sometimes just see somebody light up starting to talk about something like that, and dive in and get to know the person, get to understand the experience, get to understand why they light up, all those kinds of things. Because to your point, it's a genuine interest in the human and getting to know somebody.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you're doing business. Does not.
Totally agree. And
Right.
by the way, here's the last key to this. It's not about my nostalgia. It's
Correct.
about the prospect's nostalgia.
Yep.
And that's the difference. Like if I do things the way I like to do them, because I've always done them that way, well,
Yes.
guess what? Maybe the prospect has no interest in. And a real good example of that is text messaging. I prefer a phone call. So I
Yes.
like to phone call my prospects. But you know
Yeah.
what? Especially the younger prospects, they want text messages.
No
So
interest.
guess what?
Yeah.
I have to change and pivot on that.
Well, and I think we've also been around those individuals where when somebody tells a story that's meaningful to them, really good salespeople, then, as you described, they start asking some questions. They start wanting to learn more. We also come across those salespeople that then always have a story that's better.
Let me
or
one up
their
you.
story that they want to share. Like you said, it's not about your nostalgia.
That's
It's
right.
about the prospect of the clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, everybody. See you again tomorrow.
All right. Take care.